welcome to another exciting episode of Navigating Life with your girl, Viwe. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here as we promised yet again for this episode, and I come not alone, I stand not alone, and I talk not alone. I'm here to have a very honest conversation yet again with my very good friend, Mawed. Hello.
Hello, Viwe.
And welcome
It's
once
so
more.
good to be here. It's an honor. It's a privilege. Yeah, let me see if I can give it my best.
Let's see. All right, everybody who is joining us, we just want to extend a word of gratitude once more. Thank you so much. Keep us talking. Please subscribe, leave us your comments, tell us what you want us to talk about, and own the space. This is your space.
Your
Our
space.
plan with the space is to make sure that we have honest conversations, that we talk about anything and everything, and we make sure that we are together in this journey as we GPS navigate together through this life situation. So we have thought for today that we explore deeply
Drum roll.
da 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 everything carrier. Okay, so we'll be talking everything work.
Yep.
Whatever work is, or however we imagine work is. It's just the beginning, guys. So you're allowed to expand further on whatever that we present. You're allowed to invite us to explore more deeply the topics that we come up with. So work, Mawed, what is work for you? How's that going for you?
Immediately you said that, I
Yeah, I
thought
saw your face got serious quite.
men must work to eat.
Oh,
Men, not necessarily the male species, but men as in mankind
oh, including us,
must
including
work
women.
to eat.
No, but we're not meant to work. Women aren't supposed to work.
Women actually
We
work much
are
more
not
harder.
supposed to work. You guys are supposed to work and make us comfortable through your work.
Aren't we now?
Isn't that how it's supposed to be?
I'm saying, but we are well on track doing that. Not
Doing
so?
what? Keeping
Making
us
your
off
lives
work.
comfortable. Making your lives comfortable.
Okay, that's
It's
not
just
my
that
story, guys. That's not
think-
my story. I don't know. I've never had to not work because somebody was making me comfortable. But anyway, I am so happy for those that don't have to do what is called work. I honestly, I promise you, I bless the stars that bless you guys, because in you not having to work, you actually avoid a lot of work issues, which we are hopefully going to get into today. So what's work like for you? I don't know. Maybe do you want to tell us how work has been in this human experience called Mawetu? How have you experienced work?
How I have experienced work. The only difference is that anything that has got a reward in it
Is work.
is work. All right. As a child,
Aye,
you don't do-
Mawetu.
you don't do much. You don't do much.
Are you trying to say me slaying the streets and getting this
Why are you slaying the
guy
streets?
and this guy
Why are you
giving me a
slaying the
reward?
streets? You have to be
Are
kind
you
to
calling
him.
that
You have to be
work?
nice to him. You have to feed him. You
I have to do what?
Structure your language when addressing him, because there's a reward at the end of the day.
Aye, man,
Be
guys.
that as it may.
Guys, please come in on this one. Are you guys doing that kind of work?
Be that as it may.
Do you call that work? Okay, back at you. What's work?
Well, be that as it may. Look, work for me is basically anything that is meant for us to eke out a living from.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So how it has been for me, it has been rolling, it has been interesting. It has never actually quite gone according to plan to the T.
I'm sorry, I wasn't meant to laugh.
If I can tell you where I thought myself to be at this age of
With
mine,
work.
with work versus where I am,
I see.
two different worlds completely. All right. I've worked and I've seen merit, I've seen demerit, I've seen competitiveness, highly competitiveness. I've seen excellence.
Oh.
All right. I've seen achievement.
I
All right.
see.
So there's always been a standard to measure yourself.
I
There's
see.
always been pressure to impress one boss or another.
I see.
There's always been self-pressure to prove yourself better than what you are seen as.
I see.
Because it's never a smooth ride.
I see.
But all of that energy comes down to one thing.
Yeah.
Work. The fact that you have to overthink it, you have to plan for it, you have to give up your Sunday afternoons for it is work.
I laugh
You
because
have
I
to
can
sacrifice.
relate.
You can't be at places where you want to be, at places where you'd rather
Because
be.
work is
Discipline as well.
calling.
Absolutely. So there is reward at the end of the day.
Is the
So
reward worth work?
That's another debate altogether.
Okay, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Thank you so much for that as an intro to work. And actually as your story, by the way, because it is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Absolutely.
Work is what it is. And unfortunately, and Kudlangote, I don't know, there's this thing about us growing up, and I know I pick up a lot of this comment from a lot of people. Oh, but actually adulting. Yeah. Yes, adulting is just something else.
Yes.
And adulting does come with work, right? I think there's a certain point in life where you absolutely have to prove your worth for occupying this space on earth. And then you determine how far you take it, not always, right? Which is why we thought, let's actually come together. And I actually just want to say as we take off also, and maybe I'm digressing a bit.
Right.
But this thing called work.
Yes.
My goodness. Do you know how many cases of depression, of just misalignment that it has caused, or it continues to cause in humanity? And because we're navigating life, I thought it important for us to actually just, what is this thing and why do we need it? And how's it going?
Good and broad subject.
And how is it going, by the way? Because it's such a big part of your life. I mean, if you look in terms of time of allocation, we're given 24 hours in a day. And in a country like ours, 8 hours minimum of that time for your day is allocated to this thing called work. Right?
I think we should approach work with the same understanding as we approach your show. The underlying
How's that?
navigating life with Viwe, we have to navigate this thing called work.
We do, right?
Because it doesn't come exactly as how we were taught. We were taught that work is waking up in the morning, doing your bit for 8 hours of your life in a day, and then coming back home tired, and you have to eat, sleep, and then the routine continues.
Absolutely.
All right. But work is much more different. There's, formal employment. There's entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Yes. There's arts.
Yeah.
It's very broad.
Absolutely.
Okay? So other people do interesting things where, in a traditional sense, we would have never imagined.
Like type of
work.
jobs.
I think I've got other talents
yes,
in life that I had been vehemently discouraged to pursue.
Because they weren't serious enough to
Somebody
work.
would say things like, "Uzube a musician, you're 300 rand ngenyanga." No disrespect to the people who earn that much.
I'm just laughing. No, I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm laughing at the thought that inspires somebody to say that.
Absolutely.
It's such a limited way of you know what I mean?
I
But
wish I
anyway.
had known this at the moment they said it, because I got scared immediately.
Can you sing though? I'm just trying to measure whether we're being saved.
Well, there's only one way to find out. Yeah. If you've got
Production,
some,
Can we get a sound going here?
I have a modicum of, music. I'm not the best singer, but I have music.
I'm always
appreciation.
skeptical.
I
with,
always
with
get
musicians.
I always
need to
get
say,
lovely comments after I've sung a song.
I'm glad you have feedback. And I hope it's reliable feedback. I hope it's not feedback from your kids.
No one has to block their ears.
No,
when
I'm
I
just
sing.
saying I hope it's not feedback from people that are, like your kids that are invested.
There are times when I feel like people are just
Being nice. But
to me,
Kanene.
because I've actually mostly performed at family gatherings and gatherings of friends.
Suspect.
So I'm not sure if the general public would find me quite convincing. But hey,
actually consider your singing as well.
I would challenge them. I'm saying, guys, just try me. You will see.
Okay, guys, there we go.
Singing,
My way to at your next funeral. Well, wedding. Did I say funeral? My bad. Guys, please hire my way to at your next wedding.
I don't mind singing at your funeral.
No, I respect you. I didn't want to say at your next funeral. That was just a slip of whatever.
No,
but anyway, back
I
to
actually sing at funerals.
You do?
Oh, no, I sing at funerals.
I don't want to die before you have to prove how great you can sing.
But then you won't see anything.
No, I hope somebody, I don't want to say I hope somebody that we both know dies, then you can sing at their funeral.
In your presence. Look, does it have to be at a funeral, though? No.
Okay, let's call it a wedding.
That you will see it.
Maybe at a wedding, rather. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so back to the subject of work. I just want to I don't know if you can take us through how work has been for you in this one lifetime, where you incarnated on this earth space as Umawethu. And of course, if we were to talk childhood, I'm sure in a different context we'd understand that.
Yeah.
But particularly
should I include
for
that part
this,
as well, or strictly
No. Particularly for this show, you know, and I'm saying this because I understand that all of us grow with this acceptance that at a certain point in time we will have to contribute to this grand project called civilization, where one way or the other you do your part, I do my part, and we all contribute towards this functioning society, right? Whether it's through your music, whether it's through your music, which is the arts like you spoke about earlier, whether it's through some scientific whatever work or anything specialized in any regard. All of us, I do believe that we all contribute towards the society which is civilized, which is trying to move forward, which is trying to discover and explore further and further, and we keep exploring further. You know, what it means to be human and what it means to be incarnates of God in this earth space.
Yeah.
But and I think also as humans, we also over-imagine what work would be like as kids.
Yes.
And then we're also faced with the reality of what work is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And how has that been for you?
Yeah, I've wanted to be many things as far as work is concerned. I remember I wanted to be a doctor. At some stage, I wanted to be a lawyer. And I wanted to be a teacher. I think that was my original, because that's just about... Yeah, I remember. It was a prestigious career. I remember my grandma from my mother's side, when she referred to my dad, umkhwenyana wakhe, her son-in-law.
Yeah.
Wayembiza teacher. Yeah, and that was was like a big reverence, you know, and you know, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
It was prestigious.
I see.
And fast forward to today, if you were a CEO of a company, my mother-in-law, if I would have called me CEO, director.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, secretary.
Yes.
So I think people had so much reverence for education. Even the uneducated saw value in it. So immediately there was an inkling of achievement. Any sort of achievement, people were going to call you that, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it still continues, but then, you know, careers have changed. There's more dynamism, much more dynamism. Well, because of our political history, certain people were not allowed to study certain disciplines.
Yeah.
But back to work for me, it started from the day I was born. You know, you always had to compete, to live in a competitive world.
Yeah.
All right. For you to make it to the soccer team, for you to make it to the tennis, what you call athletics, and dance and shows as a performing scholar at the time, for you to actually get the grades, the good grades, and to be the teacher's favorite, obviously, you just had to work for one thing or another. But whatever it was linked to a reward. I think I said it a bit earlier on. Yeah, you did. Yeah. It was linked to a reward. Yeah. But the fact that it kept you awake at night, that was work for me.
So what you're saying, in other words, is that work begins quite early on. The work element in one's life begins quite early on.
It's an integral part of our existence.
Okay, I see. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's not even try and, mince our words around it. It's an integral part of our very existence.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. You know, you also just said something quite at the beginning. I'm sorry that I have to pose those questions, as, you know, I'm sure you think I'm coming as a storm.
No. Please bring it on. Here.
It's not even a question, more a remark. But I just wonder, you know, from what you're saying, you imagined yourself to could have been a teacher, could have been a doctor, could have been I'm not sure if there's a should have been. I mean, I just hear that these were all prospects, things that you aspired to be. And I just wonder how it must feel like for some of our viewers. I mean, is there careers that one might have thought, I could have been that?
Yeah.
And has there been a reconciliation? I think I'm asking you now. From A could have been a teacher, A could have been a doctor, from A could have been a whatever else.
Yeah.
With where you are, is there any reconciliation, and how's that going? Has there been peace in terms of where you've landed versus where you imagined yourself to could have been?
I'm actually ambivalent about it. I'm not sure if I should call it a reconciliation. And sometimes it's just a matter of accepting your DNA. This is who I am.
Absolutely.
These are my strengths.
Yeah.
These are my shortcomings, which I'm allowed to have. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So me sort of like drawing my identity from who I understand myself to be, the proverbial DNA, is basically saying I should have been many things, I could be many things, but I can't be many things. All right. I have to have my own interests, my own aspirations. So being a doctor was more of my father's my father's way of vicariously living through me. My mom was a nurse, my father a teacher. So my father says he had aspirations of becoming a doctor, but he did not have a very good math mark. All right, pass mark.
I see.
So he wanted me to be a doctor so bad. All right, and then I thought, let me do this for my dad. You understand? And then as I grow and I get to read about things, I realize that there's things in the world like chartered accountants and so on. And then I'm like, I'm going to be a chartered accountant. That sounds a bit smooth. That sounds a bit classy.
You're not
that
cutting up people
achieved.
like doctors are.
I have so much respect for doctors. Those people did a lot of maths and science. So please, there is nothing to
respect
actually,
to all our doctors in this country.
You guys wrote the
and
most,
abroad.
You guys wrote the most difficult exams. All right, so it's okay.
But also before you finish, I just also wonder. This is my second wonder. Whether or not the doctors that we have, how many of them went into it purely because they wanted to be doctors, and whether or not there are some who went into it with the same or similar narrative to yours, where you were like, you know what, I need to do this for the family name, I need to do this for my father, and we're talking all things work, and I just wonder how one is when they find themselves in a position where they're like, I did it, but the reasons for me doing it were actually exterior to what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I never became quite the chartered accountant I wanted to be. I just thought I had to hold in. Yeah. So to answer you, so
it's another could have been.
To answer you, there are many careers that were engrafted by the society into our lives.
I see.
Either because you were a promising student, you were good at maths and science, the bursary came. They said you could only study these things. You could only be an engineer and so on. As a result, people find themselves, yes, they achieve because they are bright students. But afterwards,
they're not aligned.
Afterwards, you find that very successful and good doctors have become very brilliant businessmen. They are no longer in the practice, but then because of the education and the discipline and the gifts that they have, some of them unfold later on in life. This is no exception. Though. It's not exceptional only to doctors, but to everybody. Some people started out as teachers. Look where they are now.
Big ups to all those people.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wanted to interrupt you just to applaud them. Yeah. And I'm saying big ups because it doesn't matter which space you started. It's not about how you start.
Yes.
It's always about how you finish, honey. Ooh. So if somebody finishes close to who they are, close as possible to who they imagine themselves as. Big ups. And I hope there's more females in that space because I actually want to say womandla. Here. Okay, I don't know if my fist is showing.
She is such an advocate for emancipation. Yeah, I like that for you, Viwe. I think that's why we are friends.
I hope there's a lot of you ladies, and for those of you that are standing on the fence, thinking, do I continue because I've already over-invested in this career, even though I'm not interested in it anymore, even though it's so heavy to wake up and go do the work that I need to do. And I hope if you're standing on the fence, I hope what you take away from this conversation is that there are those, and like we said in the first episode, guys, nothing you're going through, nobody has gone through before. So whether it's indecisiveness, whether it's feeling uninspired in what you're doing, somebody else has felt that before. And I think you only have this one lifetime to make sure that you draw close to yourself, man. Return to self, recalibrate, go back to you, and find you and do what you want to do. Okay? So back at us.
Right. Yes. People are going to recalibrate themselves, rejuvenate themselves, rediscover themselves,
and this is
repurpose themselves.
But also this is not something I'm saying out of context. Because in my own life, so for those of you who might bear any level of interest, I was supposed to have one of the most boring... Okay, let me restructure that. I was supposed to have... For my personality, I can call it boring because I did explore it. I'm a microbiologist by primary.
Oh,
Jesus.
There's quite a number of people in my life that were that.
Oh, my goodness. And I think for the longest time, it seemed clever for me to go into that space.
I mean, you are intimidated by the title itself.
No,
medical
actually,
microbiology.
honestly.
Yeah.
And I think when going into it thinking, oh my goodness, actually, I'm a girl with brains and I can actually do this work. And going into the place of work. I mean, I was in food, I was in pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And there was no moment where I didn't feel like, actually, I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life.
Okay.
You know, and I think for me, the one thing about me is that my own life is my own lab. Like, I experiment on my own life. So if I now find something...
Your own life is your own lab.
It is my own lab.
I like the pun in that. Having microbiology.
It is, absolutely. So for me, it's like if there's something that I see as possibly something functional and worth it, I don't know how to place this. Because I'm not going to go test it on somebody. Hey, if... And I know some of us who've been to school like to apply theories on other people. Hey, if... And I'm going to say this in a dangerous space, like politicians will be like, if only Zuma understood the science of investments, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, it's like, what do I understand about it? So I apply it to myself, you know?
Yeah.
So I became my own canvas. I was like, okay, girl, clearly misplaced. So how do you work this? I worked it. I was happy with how I worked it initially because it landed me in a government job. And for me, my primary escape was, my goodness, I'm not worrying. And there were certain tests I used to do, and they had to be so isolated that I was dressed. So I had somebody, I forget what they call that person, who had to make sure
Yes.
before I go into this secluded space where all that, oxygen is monitored in terms of how it moves. Yeah, because very technical, very... Don't space.
You feel like you are going into space.
Yeah, well, I'm space. And yet I'm on ground earth.
Wow.
And my primary victory at the time when I landed myself up in government was, Lord, I couldn't stand it. I'm not in laboratories. I'm not functioning machines nobody knows nothing about. So, but... Hey, then government had its own challenges, right? The ceiling is not so close, but also the red tape is everywhere, right? And I mean, I served how many years? I think I gave them 6 years. I did very well, right? And in my years, I also know, but
over half a decade.
But that half a decade, within 2 years, I knew I had to work on my exit strategy. So year two,
a woman with a plan.
No, year 2, I was like, okay, vuka mukel. Year 3, I was like, okay, let me do my MBA because it is all indications were showing. Something about this thing about being employed is not for me, but I also need to trust myself enough to jump out.
So when did the penny drop? Did it drop at that time? where you felt you are unemployable, therefore you have to create something.
I was employed.
Like achieve a
No,
little more
but
than what
this
you
was
had
this was
accomplished.
not coming from me being unemployed. I'm employed.
You are
And
employed.
by everybody else's standards, I'm in a secure job. Most you're in a secure job. And I mean, I'm performing very well in my work situation.
Yes.
It's not like I'm unseen
Yes.
or unheard. I'm in a space where I am seen, where I
Yeah.
can see, actually, I am impacting that life and that
Yeah.
life and that life. So it was not a situation
So you were
where
able to
I was.
be effective.
I was very
but the
effective.
passion was lacking.
No, the passion was there. But what I could see was that this was not something I could do forever.
I see.
Even with its prospects of growth,
Right.
it was still not something that would satiate me for life.
Oh, okay.
It was something that would be like, you're right for now. I don't know
I'm
if
glad you
satiation.
expressed yourself the way you did about it, because some of us actually kept it inside and we just wanted to stay on longer because we had a point to prove.
I didn't.
A point to prove to ourselves and a point to prove to our adversaries, if you like, a point to prove to people that had opinions about us.
Right? When it comes to those.
Yeah, I mean, you realize, I think it's based on the options that you have as well. What can I do? What can I possibly, am I good enough? You always have to have those monologues, when
it comes to...
Yeah, in relation to your future, your talents and abilities.
No, for me, I think when I came into a work situation, I understood that this is not a space that you just allow to unfold without any input from you. And by allowing it to unfold without any input from you is when you allow the career to dictate your heights. Like, okay, Ndilapha, what's the next logical step? And that's what government was presenting. Government most has got those policies. You can't jump from here and shoot up there.
Yeah.
And for me, when I looked at that, I was like, there is no way.
Yeah.
Then you can expect me to now move from assistant director, then serve so many years, you be deputy director. Then from admin, from an purely admin position and so on. So that for me was just like, I don't have the time and not the patience for this. And I was like, in actual fact, and I know, I mean, against everybody advising me otherwise, saying, girl, pensions is and that's another thing that I want us to talk about. This great importance on pensions. It's not the same. Look, I might be shooting it down because it wasn't as big for me to now in my 20s worry about leaving a government job because of pensions. Yeah, but that was something that was presented. But uzawuluza pensions zakho.
Yes.
Uzawuthini, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
look, it's how we were
socialized,
acculturated. So we basically ungadlali ngomsebenzi. If you resign today because you pursue something that you believe is linking to your destiny, people don't often see it that way because they are risk averse. What about your salary? Where are you going to get your pension fund? Your pension? There is no security. What if it works? I think that's what separates us from people that have achieved greatness in their personal success. Right? Yeah. They've made those bold and daring decisions in the midst of a contaminating noise of
security.
What if and security. And security is a false concept as well.
Absolutely.
As much as we should be cautious in the decisions that we're making and take calculated risks. But you know what they say about risk and reward. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. People that have a sharp risk appetite, they tend to achieve much more.
I know. But also just on that risk part, because I also don't want to seem like I had my risks well calculated.
Okay,
right?
Which is also okay.
Otherwise I would be lying. I think for me, it's the same as work, With work, there are pros and there are cons, right? As you are secured in your job, in your ability to bring in income, right? Yeah. But you are also guaranteed certain challenges in that space, that will test you, that will test you beyond, and you might even find yourself questioning whether or not the amount that you are suffering for at times is worth it, But notwithstanding all of that, I do still believe, and more so now, with everything I've gone through, I've been in business for 11 years, and I've failed dismally once.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
You've been in business.
Yes.
When did you start and how?
Oh.
Because most people who think business have got ideas, most of them brilliant, and they tell you one thing: I need funding so that the idea that I have can hatch properly. So how did it formulate in your own life?
So when I went into business, I was still married, and part of that story will touch on that part, which is whatever.
Okay.
So the first 5 years of my life in business was an adventure.
Oh.
It was an adventure in the
Right.
sense that there was money, which was close enough, but that money didn't mean success
Okay.
as I thought it did.
Yeah.
Can I say
hope
that again?
More people are listening.
Can I
Please
say that
it
again? Because
Yes,
sometimes you do have
please.
excess, you do have money.
So money does not translate to success.
It doesn't.
There is someone that I want. There are some people. Maybe there's a gender. Maybe there's different genders. There's an audience somewhere
Yeah.
that needs to hear this.
No, I swear, there was money.
Money doesn't equate
But that
success.
money, I swear to you, with the benefit of hindsight once more, where one has had to reflect upon their lives, that money wasn't success. That was adventure in the purest form, where it is available, right? And I made it. We made it, but it wasn't success.
Okay.
It wasn't success. And to prove that it wasn't, shortly thereafter, I mean, at the end of 5 years, cracks were there showing that it was money, but it wasn't success.
All right. So we understand the value of money,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
As I'm sitting here next to you,
Yeah.
I want to need it. All right.
You want to need money.
But you said something. Yes, I want to need it.
Don't we
I could
all?
do with an extra rand, an extra
Don't
100
we
rand,
all?
an extra 1,000, an extra million. Many of them. But you said money does not equate success, right? All right.
No, it
it's
doesn't.
a very powerful and it sounds true. All right. But I still want you to unpack it.
I like.
We've spoken about money. Let's put it
Yes.
aside. I think money is just foreclosed. We've always talked about money and argued about money.
Yes.
And
sometimes you haven't
stressed about
paid me.
money and so on.
For my work.
But
I'm
now
joking.
let's talk about success. Let's talk about
Better, guys. I hope my clients know this is a joke. And also, I hope his corporate side, like, Nje, guys, give us lenience.
I'm fine. What I'm saying, no, nothing of that sort. So what I mean, can you take us to your confidence regarding success? What does it look like to you?
Okay. So when I say money was there at a certain point, but I knew and I know and I now know even more with hindsight and deep reflection
Right.
that actually money isn't success, right? And I can say this at many levels, but just to keep the conversation simple.
Yes.
You go and you bet your 6 numbers and a
Right.
bonus number and you get 10 million out of the Lotto Plus. Is that success? Do you regard that as success to the level of somebody who has had to work for a similar value of money? Right.
Okay, it's the
So no, for me, it's also no, it's very complex. But I think for me, hence I said let's keep it at that simplest level. But
Right.
do you regard those two the same? Do you regard you out of having registered a company, knowing me and me in a strategic position where I now give you something and then you go and invoice the amount of money to the value of 10 million? Do you regard that as success? Because I think for me, primarily success has got to be sustainable. It has to be repeatable at the basic level, whether to the same value or not. You know, you must trust the process that got you there to allow you to scale, you know, to grow and to, you know what I mean? So without those, for me, I still think it's questionable, right? And to have, so I guess success for me, is a very complex process.
Okay.
And it touches on the finances, but it also touches on the human aspect as well.
If someone who's under your influence, for instance,
Yes.
were to say to you, I want to work hard so that I can make more money, what would you say to them? I've heard what you're saying, and I think that reasoning subsists, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody were to say, I want to make a lot of money, I want to work hard so that I can make a lot of money,
I think that person would be speaking to a different me today. As I tell you, I speak of my life in business in terms of two halves, so two segments.
right?
The first half where there was money and no success, according to me.
Yes.
Well, and maybe another half where maybe I don't care whether there's money or not, but I know there's success, right? Can I even say that without sounding vain?
You're not sounding any vain.
Am I not?
Actually, we interested in your coding of success.
Okay.
All right? To say, what does success look like to
Yes.
you?
So as I said,
Is
on
it
the one hand,
fulfillment? Is it legacy? Is it influence? What does success look like to you?
So I think personally, I've had to ask myself that question quite a lot, right? And I also just know, and I think this might seem like it's an answer for the TV, all right? Or
Be as
the
honest
answer
as you can
yabantu
be.
bakabanbani.
Take
But
it
you
as
know,
though you've gone
I
on
think
TV.
for me, success is attached to service.
Service.
Yes. I think for me, success for me, and I like English. English, yakwazi ukuthi for you, what does this mean? For me, I think it is attached to service. I think if what I do makes a difference in your life, and in that situation, I also get to make money, right? I think for me, because both our needs are met, then in that, whether it's one transaction or not, it is success, right? And my ability to scale on that, right? Or my ability to extend that beyond just you, to include somebody else and somebody else, that speaks to my ability to sustain myself, sustainability. So it means the concept is not just because you're my friend. The concept extends beyond our relationship. This is why I'm saying then it becomes attached to service. And I think if we were all to, I don't know, if we were to test that theory, Viwe theory, I didn't come up with that. But I also just know that when you can be able to sell a service that sorts somebody else's issue, and if you are able to scale on that.
Wow. I think you should document what you just said. No.
No, but
Yeah.
okay.
All right, I'll give you.
All right.
It's my turn to grill you a little bit.
Let's go.
I'm not grilling you. Actually, I'm elevating you.
Thank you.
So
As I saw
you
up
started,
high.
yeah. So you started business, right? And you started while you were with your husband. Then.
And I don't want.
All right.
Before we continue
And
on
then-
this, yes. Okay, finish.
Yeah, while you were with your husband, then obviously there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of insights and learnings. All right, because you said you went into it without any requisite risk assessment.
Yeah.
You went there armored with a lot of faith.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then once you got into the journey, there are certain things that you realized there were some aha moments. And then there were some moments of doom or some moments of, shocking discoveries. So you want to share some learnings with people who define work in the sense of entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Yeah, the learnings that we can
Yeah. So in my past 11 years, right?
As a businesswoman.
As a businesswoman. In the first 5 years, firstly, I didn't really define myself much of a businesswoman, although I was.
Okay.
I didn't because, and I think this ties in quite closely with episode 1, where we spoke about divorces.
Right.
It was difficult for me to actually call out my identity because I was in the marriage. And the marriage for me is still problematic, not because of the partner, but because of who I become in that situation.
Okay.
So for me, I almost wanted to seem like I'm the wife that's assisting a business person. And yet I was in every aspect and every right. I was at the front of it, but I didn't want to call myself that. Right. And it was also quite ego-feeding for him at the time because it was nice for him to say, my wife supports me. In that sense, I would not be called a businesswoman in the true sense.
So you felt that you were actually supporting somebody else's dream?
No, I didn't define myself to myself. That was the first part about that part.
All right.
And I call it the adventure purposefully because I went through everything. At the end of it, I had inherited so many problems, right? Tied to my divorce. I was in so much debt. I was in so much debt. I was totally shattered by the experiment of my life in my workspace because I'd left my job and I feel like everything that I was warned against had actually happened. So at a certain point in time, there was money, but I still say there wasn't success. But what seemed like money could get me my Evoque, my, these luxurious Benz and so on. So it was money in the true sense of what money is, but it wasn't success. And to a point where I found myself divorced at the wake of COVID and having to start all over again. So I sit here now knowing very well that I'm actually quite the businesswoman I imagine myself to be.
So like a phoenix.
Yes.
You shall rise.
Having to rise from the ashes of the divorce.
Right.
And having to rise against, I remember Shem, God bless my previous employer. I think he called me up to say, we still have your job.
Wow.
If you need to come back, we'd still need to have your job.
Burn your bridges. So
I never do. I never do. And balancing that with knowing the troubles that I had, and I obviously didn't take the job up, because I thought, you know what, if this thing is here to kill me, let it kill me. If being a business person is actually in his blends of shattering everything that I am, let it do it properly. So I went back to the streets, and this time I was like, I am who I think I am, the businesswoman that I imagine myself to be, and let's see. And you know what? And I can tell you this, and I can tell you this honestly, I co-influenced by success stories of other people or progress where it involves other people, like everything you've heard elsewhere before in podcasts or in any material that's supposed to motivate somebody. But I came out, reflected on my journey, because as much as COVID for some reason was kind to me.
Yeah.
Because my line of work, I still made money right at the time. And as in Jani, God made it possible for me.
It was a thriving period for you.
God made it possible. Yeah. Enough for me to see at the end of COVID to be like, actually, it has been getting better. Every year has been getting better. I sit here today as a female entrepreneur.
Right.
And I mean, I haven't even gotten into what I do and how I do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not important. But for me, all I can tell you is that without selling a face to anybody, it has been getting better. I've grown in my journey as a business. I've grown enough for me to know that this is a calling.
Wow.
I've grown enough for me to understand the responsibility that comes with it. I've grown enough for me to understand that actually, for you to be a sound entrepreneur, you have to be willing to reflect and to be honest with yourself. It's quite an interesting journey for me. I mean, you'd know there are things. It's such a spiritual journey nobody understands. There are things that I subscribe to and I'm like, you know what? Whether the sun shifts, from it, however it orbits, I do not negotiate with employees on salaries. If salaries are supposed to be paid on this day, they are paid.
Oh, you mean that kind of negotiation?
That negotiation. And that is itself. It's like you don't give yourself excuses, honey. And I mean, I'm such a proud entrepreneur.
The discipline of paying people on time.
Of course.
When money is due to them.
Whether I stand, but these are things I didn't have before because I wasn't quite clear in my definition of self as a business person.
But I suppose for you to actually get a full conviction of it, you have to get through it.
No, that's why I'm saying for me, it's also spiritual. It's like I honor what I'm supposed to honor so that I can also be honored. Doesn't mean I don't get I mean, I've got people who try and run away with your money and so on.
Right.
But also when you deal with those things, when you understand this and it's a conviction and it's all about what you are called here to do.
Yes.
It's not personal.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody tries to, you operate in, you look at it in terms of what's my best card to play forward here and so on. So you anchored out differently.
Right.
When you understand why you are doing it. When it is clear why you are doing it, you navigate the space differently. I'm happy. I mean, I'm in business now. How many years?
You said 11.
No. 11 failed, then started again in 2019, in 2020. Kalondo again. Because I'm not giving
11 years.
No. I was in business for the first 5 years.
All right.
And then in 2017 or so, 2018 started going down.
Okay.
And I went down badly. It was public. You know when you go down and everyone knows, but actually sheriff is coming.
Yeah.
That was that type of situation. Started again. I might get the years wrong, but I know that this is, you know what I mean? By 2020, I was starting again.
Yeah.
And I was starting again, not just from business, also from divorce and starting Jonga.
So your world was falling apart and...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You were out of sorts.
I was.
So I can just imagine it's a common story to every
business
person has endeavored life that way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say only in business, but
generally
I've heard it from many business people, from many entrepreneurs. Some of them were actually thrown out completely. But the fact that you
do you want to know how bad it went?
Of losing everything, and then you still believe in it. That staying power, that willpower, that desire to actually do much better. And I'm actually quite inspired by that. I think even in the corporate, we're talking work, right?
Yes.
Work in a form of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Work
in terms of corporate arts,
in terms of corporate
government.
So for me, I think
any service.
What's relatable is in the corporate. The very same dynamics and disciplines that you have articulated so beautifully apply in the
corporate
space as well.
Yes.
There's people with influence there. There's people with a track record there. You have to actually carve out your own success and you have to uniquely make yourself invaluable to the business, indispensable. They say no one is indispensable, but you can make people doubt that. There are people with an exceptional gift of making sure that they commit to what they do. They commit to excellence, actually.
Yes.
But sometimes they fail because when promotion time comes...
You've just reminded me of something. Can I just cut you there?
Yes, no.
In addition to my definition of success.
Right. Yeah.
I am a firm believer that you cannot attain it, though. Nobody does.
You cannot attain?
Success.
So it has to be a fantasy?
No, you bring it to whatever you do. It is a decision that comes before action. I swear to you. If you tell yourself that I, Viwe, and Ntombika Isemgambi, I am going to make that thing work.
So
you have
to dress
like bring your success. You have to imagine it.
Like
no, you have to imagine it in its entirety. Then you have to bring it. Whether it requires effort, it's a decision. It's not a decision. Then you're like, oh my God, I ran a race. Oh my God, I won. You know what I mean? Some of us are like it, but I just know.
Dream it.
Thank you. I just know unless you believe you are capable of it, unless you can bring it, you will not find it.
As long as we have got ample room for failure, we will not attain success.
Absolutely. No, it's up to you what room size you have for it.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's what separates successful people, I suppose, from, shall I say, non-successful people.
Yeah.
It's that mindset.
I know. And I just want to expand on it.
Successful.
I know. You know, and guys, and I don't know if I can say it in because you get what you expect of yourself.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Now think about it for a second.
Yes.
if you are saying, oh my goodness, I'm probably going to suck at this podcast.
Yes.
And you are convinced, and that is your primary belief.
Yes.
Yours is okala.
Yeah.
You will not even know where to start.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you go in it, whether you say it or not, but if you have a conviction in you that there is a chance, there's a reason why I need to be in front of that camera, because I might actually make something of it. Do you understand? That's the difference. And I think a lot of people look for this, look for it outside themselves. They're like, oh my God, ndifuna uba nandibone. Do you see yourself? Can you bring yourself to that situation and expect yourself to, to thrive in that space?
What constitutes work?
Work. Sure, work for me, and I think I will draw from what you said earlier, that it's not just what we do to make money, it's in everything. I think that's what I understood about what you said, and about how soon it starts, and how about, you know what I mean, right? I think for me, work has been something, and I'm speaking in terms of the other work now.
Yeah.
We've agreed that work has been a constant thing in our lives, whether you were trying to get into a netball team, nani. So that I take from you, and I actually just agree with it. But in terms of work for me now today,
right,
kuningi. I'll tell you why in the city kuningi.
I didn't see that one coming.
Kuningi, because work is something that is fulfilling for me, right? Because in the workspace, one is able to say we're going to achieve that. And when you get there, there's a sense of validation and fulfillment that one receives, right? Work is at the primary level my ability to survive and make sure that I can provide for myself and my kids and my family. Right. But I'm also old enough and wise enough to know and not to distrust my ability to now provide for myself and my family and my soul, which changes my definition of work.
Right.
So then work stops just being about what I'm able to do and how I'm able to capitalize on it or make money from it. Work right now in my 40 plus years is just
40 plus.
40 plus. I
plus.
swear, no, 40 plus.
Okay.
Work now in my 40 plus years is about thriving, but thriving with others.
Ooh.
Right? It's about
taking it to that level.
Absolutely. Honestly, it's no longer about, look, I promise you, I do not doubt my ability to put bread on the table.
So lift as you rise.
For me, it's about how do I thrive and how does my way to also thrive with me, because we're great at this thing. You know what I mean? Whether we're making bread or not.
That's an incredible human spirit.
And it's about, and I mean, I say this with some of the people that I work with, I'm like, hey, and they might not be aware of how much this thing means to me. They might not, because I've never really set them down to say. But for me, it's also like, I see you. And fortunately, I see me in all of them. So when I look at this young lady that I have in my office and whom I just met, and she was about to go back to school because work was tough, and go and do a teacher's course, I mean, go back and change directions in terms of careers before we found each other. And when I saw her, I was just like, okay, just the assistant. But now I'm just like, hey, Sanalam, if only I had all the money in the world, I would show you. And not, show you more materialistically that I actually see this in you. Because I see me in my other years of life when I carried that spirit of wanting and so on. So for me, it's not just about, and I mean, yes, I might not be winning great, like in grand style with other people. But for me, work is just also about how do you collaborate? How do you win with me? Because Gendile Capital, I must still win in that game. But how do we win together? How do I win? How do I make sure you realize yourself, but I also win in that because I've invested myself?
Wow. You remind me of a quote that lighting somebody else's candle does not dim the light in yours. Something to that effect. I'm just paraphrasing.
I remember a time in my life, and I hope this guy remembers. So I'm supervising this guy.
Right.
This is a married man.
Yes.
With a family. We find ourselves in this government job. Now I was stimulated. I can't speak for the rest of Abanya Band because I was just like, let's do this work. And I'm supposed to be supervising this guy. He's leading a team. And then I'm looking at him. He is playing a game on his computer.
All right.
Then I call him aside and I'm like, yo, I don't mind that you are. But I just mind that when you reflect 5 years from now, you know, uzobe uti, what have you achieved? You know, I pride myself, Shem, that he went to school, got qualification. Somebody else would share the sad story with me in the line of work, engazange wafunda, who had shared something grave that I've never shared with anybody. And then I also just said, you know what, unfortunately, we're going to have to reflect on this moment. How do you want it to be in the future? We're psychologists.
It's a motivating spirit.
We're psychologists as we speak. So just a number of those, and I was just trying to say, sometimes we can win together. You know, we don't have to be so hard indoors about work.
Winning
also
together.
At work, guys, we can win together. So
We can win together and let us be winners of success.
Yes,
right?
and not money, because money is not success. Money is
Right.
comfort, but we can speak volumes and for days.
Navigating Life with Viwe. We'll see you in our next episode. It's going to be exciting. It shall be loaded with your commentary, and we shall factor it in, and we shall just roll it out and implement it. Thank you very much.
Yes, guys, this is your show, Own It, Navigating Life with Viwe. Give us anything and anything. Anything and anything we hear.
No taboo
Okay,
conversations.
let's navigate life with Viwe, and we are out. It's a wrap.
I know